Good morning, brothers, sisters, and friends. I'm excited to be able to speak to you today. Today I'll be speaking about the centurion at the cross. For the sake of this discussion, a centurion was a Roman soldier who was in charge of about 100 men. And a Pharisee was one of the religious leaders in the time of Jesus. Now turn with me in your Bible to Matthew 27, verse 45, and we'll be reading down to verse 54. Matthew 27, verse 45 to 54. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came all over the land. About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, he's calling Elijah. Immediately, one of them ran and got a sponge. He filled it with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split, and the tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs after Jesus' resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, surely he was the Son of God. The centurion at the cross is someone that I've never really paid much attention to before now. He was always such an obscure character within the story. His role wasn't major and not much was said about him, but there's still so much we can learn from him. The centurion and the guards witnessed everything. They would have seen complete darkness at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They would have experienced the earthquake. They would have seen the rocks split and the tombs break open. They got a front row seat to the most eventful death that they have ever seen. The centurion himself probably oversaw many executions in his time, but nothing could have prepared him for what he saw that day. He probably recounted the events of that day to his kids and grandkids many times. The events surrounding Jesus' death caused him to make what seems to be a profession of faith. He said, surely this was the Son of God. The centurion probably doubted the claims that Jesus was divine. He probably even participated in mocking Jesus. But after what happened that day, he was convinced that he just killed the Son of God. Now I want to compare and contrast the reaction of the centurion and the guards and the reaction of the chief priests and Pharisees. So let's read down in verse 62. The next day, the one after preparation day, the chief priests and the Pharisees went to Pilate. Sir, they said, we remember that while he was still alive, that deceiver said, after 3 days I will rise again. So give the order for the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal the body and tell people that he has been raised from the dead. This last deception will be worse than the first. Take a guard, Pilate answered. Go make the tomb as secure as you know how. So they went and made the tomb secure by putting a seal on the stone and posting the guard. Even though the chief priests and Pharisees and the centurion and the guards witnessed the same events, they had completely different reactions. The chief priests and Pharisees would have seen the temple curtain rip in two. They would have seen the rock split and the disciples rising from the dead. They would have seen complete darkness at 3 o'clock. They would have seen everything that the centurion and the guards would have seen, but yet their reactions were so different. Now, we do not know whether the centurion became a follower of Jesus. Merely acknowledging that Jesus was the Son of God is not enough. We must also put our faith and trust in him to save us from sin. Believing must be followed by trusting. Now, I'm left wondering, what could be the difference between the chief priests and the Pharisees and the centurion and the guards? And the answer is, the chief priests and the Pharisees' hearts were hard. If Jesus was the Christ, then they would have to submit to him. And they would have to change their ways. They would have to change many things that they were doing and many traditions that they were holding on to. Submitting to Jesus would have taken them out of their comfort zone. Now, my question to those of us who haven't placed their faith and trust in Jesus as their Savior is, what is holding you back? Are you holding on to your comfort zone? Are you holding on to your traditions and your ways of living? Is it the things of this world? Are your current worldly pleasures too much to give up for God? Whatever your answer is to those questions, Jesus came and he died for you. He came and laid down his life so that you, by putting your faith and trust in him, can be saved from sin and judgment. What choice will you make?